What if everything you've believed about your family was a lie? What if the pain, the dysfunction, and the chaos weren't just random misfortunes, but exactly what your soul needed to awaken? Listen closely, because once you understand this, you'll never see your past the same way again. Toxic families aren't a curse, they're a secret initiation, a test designed for you to shape you, strengthen you, and push you toward your true power. And if you've ever felt like the black sheep, the outsider, the one who sees what others ignore, then you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to break free. Most people look at family dysfunction as something unfair, something they were unlucky to be born into. But what if that struggle was the very thing that's shaping your strength, your wisdom, and your purpose? Your soul didn't come here for an easy ride. It came here to evolve, and that evolution starts with understanding why you were placed exactly where you are. In this video, we're diving deep into the hidden truth behind toxic families, how they forge chosen ones into unbreakable forces, and most importantly, how you can rise above it all. By the end of this, you won't just see your past differently, you'll understand the power you've gained from it. So if you're ready to shift your perspective, take back your energy, and finally step into the person you were meant to become, stick around. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because, trust me, this is just the beginning of your transformation. Imagine, before you were even born, your soul stood at a crossroads, carefully selecting the perfect environment for growth. Sounds wild, right? But what if I told you that your family, yes, even with all its chaos and dysfunction, was chosen by you as a training ground for something bigger? The universe doesn't make mistakes, and neither does your soul. You didn't land in this family by accident. You signed up for an experience that would push you toward awakening, healing, and self-mastery. Think about it. Great warriors aren't trained in peaceful gardens, and diamonds don't form without immense pressure. If you feel like the black sheep, the misunderstood one, or the one who sees beyond the illusions, it's because you were meant to. You were placed in this family dynamic to break patterns, to learn resilience, and to uncover the deep truth about who you really are. Instead of asking, why me? A better question is, what am I here to learn? That shift alone can change everything. And here's the kicker. Your soul didn't choose this for suffering. It chose it for expansion. Every painful experience, every toxic interaction, and every moment of feeling out of place is an invitation. An invitation to wake up, to break free from limiting beliefs, and to step into the power that's been inside you all along. Think of it like a video game. Would you choose the easy level if you came here to evolve? Probably not. Realizing this can feel both empowering and frustrating. It's easy to fall into the trap of resentment. But what if you looked at your family through the lens of purpose rather than punishment? Maybe that controlling parent or emotionally unavailable sibling isn't just a random hardship, but rather a trigger designed to spark your inner growth. When you shift your perspective, you reclaim your power. No longer a victim of circumstance, but a conscious player in your own destiny. Now, does that mean you have to accept toxic behavior? Absolutely not. Awareness is the first step. But what comes next is even more powerful. There's a hidden gift in all of this, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. But before we get there, we need to talk about something crucial: how these challenges are actually shaping you into something unstoppable. Adversity is a blacksmith's fire. It either breaks you or forges you into something unshakable. Toxic families, as painful as they are, serve as an intense but powerful training ground. Many chosen ones grow up feeling like they're constantly being tested, pushed to their limits emotionally and mentally. But here's the truth: these experiences aren't meant to destroy you. They're meant to shape you into the person you were always destined to be. Strength isn't built in comfort. It's carved out through struggle. Think about some of the most influential, wise, and powerful individuals in history. More often than not, Their journeys began in hardship. Oprah Winfrey, for example, overcame extreme adversity in her early years, only to become one of the most influential voices in the world. What if she had crumbled under the weight of her past instead of using it as fuel? Your toxic family might feel like a curse, but in reality, it's the very thing sharpening your intuition, resilience, and emotional intelligence. One of the greatest lessons toxic families teach is discernment. When you grow up around manipulation, gaslighting, or emotional neglect, you learn to see beyond surface-level interactions. You become highly attuned to energy, words, and unspoken intentions. This is a gift. Many people go through life blindly, trusting others, but you've been trained to see, to read between the lines, to sense when something is off, to understand people on a deeper level. That's an ability money can't buy. But let's be real, none of this means it's easy. Sometimes the weight of toxic family dynamics can feel unbearable, and it's okay to acknowledge that. The key is in recognizing that every hardship is building something within you. It's strengthening your ability to set boundaries, to walk away from toxicity, and to stand firm in your truth even when no one else sees it. What once felt like a burden eventually transforms into your greatest asset. Not everyone is born to break cycles, but you were. You might have noticed that the dysfunction in your family isn't just random. It's been playing on repeat for generations. The same patterns of abuse, neglect, emotional repression, or scarcity mindset have been passed down like an unwanted inheritance. But here's the game changer. It stops with you. You weren't just born into this family to suffer through it. You were born to disrupt the cycle and forge a new path. Being a cycle breaker isn't easy. It often means standing alone, being misunderstood, and making choices that no one before you dared to make. Maybe you're the first one in your lineage to prioritize mental health, to walk away from toxic relationships, or to choose healing over survival mode. These decisions may not make sense to those who are still caught in the old patterns, but that's because you're doing something revolutionary. And revolutions don't come without resistance. One of the biggest challenges of breaking a generational cycle is the internal battle. You may feel guilt, as if by choosing a different path you're betraying your family, but in reality you're setting them free. When one person heals, it creates a ripple effect. Even if your family doesn't recognize it right away, your growth will influence them in ways you can't yet see. Think about how many ancestors before you wished they had the chance to break free, but never did. You're not just healing for yourself. You're healing for all of them. Of course, breaking cycles isn't just about saying I won't be like them. It requires conscious effort, learning emotional regulation, developing self-awareness, and reprogramming the beliefs that were ingrained in you. It's about choosing relationships that reflect love and respect, rather than repeating old wounds. It's about raising the bar, not just for yourself, but for future generations. You are literally rewriting the story of your bloodline. Every struggle you faced in your toxic family wasn't just random suffering. It was a lesson, a test, a stepping stone toward your higher self. When you shift your mindset from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "What is this teaching me?" everything changes. Hardships transform from burdens into powerful tools of self-awareness, emotional mastery, and deep personal growth. The pain wasn't pointless. It was shaping you into someone wiser, stronger, and more in tune with your purpose. Think about it. If you hadn't experienced emotional neglect, would you have learned the importance of self-love? If you weren't surrounded by manipulation, would you have developed the ability to see through deception? These challenges forced you to grow in ways you never would have if life had been easy. Many of the strongest, most intuitive, and most emotionally intelligent people come from difficult backgrounds because struggle forces them to evolve. It's like life's version of leveling up in a video game. Each challenge prepares you for the next stage. But here's the part most people miss. Challenges don't just teach you what not to do, they also reveal what you're capable of. Every time you survived emotional chaos, you proved to yourself that you could navigate uncertainty. Every time you set a boundary, you reinforced your own worth. Every time you chose to heal instead of repeat toxic patterns, you took back control of your life. Your struggles weren't just painful, they were proof of your strength and resilience. Of course, that doesn't mean challenges feel good in the moment. Growth is uncomfortable, and healing can be painful. But once you recognize that every hardship is actually a disguised lesson, you stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances. You start seeing yourself as the creator of your destiny. Instead of just enduring the pain, you begin learning from it. And that's where real transformation begins. But here's an even deeper truth. These lessons aren't just for you. Your family, as dysfunctional as they may be, is actually reflecting something back at you. What if I told you that your toxic family is actually reflecting something back at you? Something you need to see, heal, or transcend. It's easy to look at family dysfunction as an external problem, something that just happened to you. But when you start seeing it as a mirror, everything shifts. The traits, wounds, and behaviors that trigger you the most are often pointing directly at unresolved parts of yourself. Not to blame you, but to wake you up. For example, if you grew up with emotionally unavailable parents, you might find yourself attracting relationships with emotionally distant people. Why? Because that wound is still calling for attention. If manipulation and control were constant themes in your family, you might struggle with setting boundaries until you recognize the pattern and decide to break it. The universe has a funny way of repeating lessons until we get them. Your family's dysfunction isn't just theirs, it's an opportunity for you to grow beyond it. This doesn't mean you have to accept toxic behavior or force yourself into painful family dynamics. It simply means taking a step back and asking, what is this teaching me about myself? If you feel unworthy because of how you were treated, that's your signal to cultivate self-love. If you feel silenced, it's a call to find your voice. Toxic families often amplify the very wounds we are meant to heal in this lifetime. It's not fair, but it is transformative. Now, the hardest part, not taking their behavior personally. Hurt people hurt people. Most of the toxicity you've experienced didn't start with you. It was passed down generation after generation like a script no one questioned. But you're here to rewrite that script. You don't have to. Play the role you were assigned. You get to choose a new path, one rooted in healing, self-awareness, and emotional freedom. True freedom doesn't come from fixing your toxic family. It comes from healing yourself and learning to detach emotionally. Many chosen ones spend years trying to change their family, hoping that if they just explain things the right way, show enough love, or prove their worth, things will get better. But here's the harsh truth. You can't change people who aren't willing to change. The real power lies in detaching from their chaos and reclaiming your inner peace. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop absorbing. You stop internalizing their dysfunction as your burden to carry. You stop reacting to their triggers. You stop expecting them to be different. Instead, you focus on your energy, your healing, and your boundaries. When you master detachment, you take back control of your emotions, and suddenly, their toxic behavior loses its grip on you. One of the most effective ways to detach is by setting emotional boundaries. For example, if conversations with a certain family member always leave you drained, limit your time with them. If guilt trips and manipulation are their go-to tactics, recognize them for what they are and refuse to engage. Silence can be one of the strongest boundaries. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to your energy just because they share your DNA. Detaching also means releasing the need for validation. Many chosen ones grow up desperately seeking approval from toxic family members who will never give it. But once you realize that their inability to see your worth has nothing to do with you, You free yourself. You don't need them to recognize your value for it to be real. You already are enough, and your worth isn't up for debate. And here's the magic of detachment. When you stop feeding into the cycle starts to weaken. You become the observer rather than the participant. And in that space of emotional freedom, real healing begins. But here's the thing. When one person heals, it doesn't just stop with them. It creates a ripple effect. So what happens when your healing starts influencing those around you? Healing a toxic family isn't about forcing them to change. It's about transforming yourself first. When you do the inner work, something incredible happens. Your energy shifts, your boundaries strengthen, and the way people interact with you starts to change. You become the proof that healing is possible, and whether they admit it or not, your family will feel that shift. Some may resist it, others may be inspired by it, but one thing is certain. When you heal, you break the cycle. Many chosen ones waste years trying to fix their family, only to end up exhausted and heartbroken. But here's the truth. You don't heal by dragging others to the light. You heal by becoming the light. Instead of focusing on their dysfunction, redirect your energy inward. Start with therapy, self-reflection, shadow work, anything that helps you unlearn the toxic patterns you were raised in. The more you grow, the more you'll realize that healing was never about them. It was always about you. Healing doesn't mean reconciling with toxic relatives or pretending the past didn't hurt. It means processing the pain, releasing resentment, and choosing peace over chaos. It means forgiving for yourself, not for them. Forgiveness doesn't excuse their behavior. It simply frees you from carrying it any longer. It's about letting go of the emotional chains that have kept you bound to their dysfunction. And here's the paradox. Sometimes when you heal, your family does change. Not because you forced them to, but because your transformation forces them to confront their own patterns. Maybe they start respecting your boundaries. Maybe they begin their own healing journey. Or maybe they stay the same, but you're no longer affected by it. Either way, you win. This journey isn't easy, but it's worth it. You were born into this family for a reason, not to suffer, but to rise. Now that you see the bigger picture, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep replaying the same patterns, carrying the weight of a past that no longer serves you? Or will you choose to rise, to detach, to heal, and to finally step into the power you were meant to claim? The truth is, you were never meant to stay trapped in the dysfunction. You were meant to transcend it. But that choice? It's yours to make. Healing doesn't happen overnight, and breaking generational cycles isn't for the weak. It takes courage, it takes awareness. But the moment you stop seeking validation from those who can't give it, the moment you reclaim your energy, instead of trying to fix what's broken, that's when real freedom begins. The pain wasn't pointless. It was preparing you. Now, the only thing left to do is decide what comes next. Look around. How many people do you know who are still stuck in toxic cycles, unaware of the patterns controlling their lives? How many family members are repeating the same wounds without realizing it? But you see it. And that means you have the power to change everything. Not by fixing them, but by choosing a different path for yourself. Because when one person heals, the entire lineage feels it. So now I want to hear from you. What's the biggest realization you've had about your toxic family? How has it shaped you into who you are today? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video that can change your perspective. You're not alone in this journey. This is just the beginning.